Hilchis Matami Mishkav Umoshav Perik Sheni. Now we learned in the first Perik that the Dam Nida has a din of an Avatuma and it's Matame B'mago B'masa. Al derech zeh the Ziva of a Zov is also an Avatuma and it's Matame B'mago B'masa. Then we also learned that B'negei Moshel the Ziva of a Zov, we learned at the end that a Zov is Matame also Sai Ruke and Sai Shechvazare and also Mei Miraglev, the Reik and the Shechvazare and the Mei Miraglev of a Zov is also Metame B'mago B'masa. And Al derech zeh the din is B'negei Anida that Anida, her Reik and her Mei Raglayim are also Metame B'mago B'masa. Now this, so Nachamol. So it's by a Zov. There's the din that there was the ziva of a zov, and al derech zeh shechvazari, and al derech ruke mei meraglav. And by a nida is the dam of a nida, and al derech zeh ruka, and al derech zeh mei meraglav. Now the din is that the ziva of a zov is only metame when it's lach. The ziva of a zov is only metame when it's lach. Masha'inkin, the dam of a nida is metame even when it's yovish. And al derech zeh the shechvazara of a zov is only metame when it's lach, not when it's yovish. So the reik, nachamol, the reik and the shechvazera and the ziva of a zov is only metame when it's lach, not when it's yovish. By meir aglaim is cheshayches because if it's yovish, so it's not there. So masha'inkin by ziva, you could have a ziva which is yovish, you could have a ziva which is lach. So a ziva and al derech zeh shechvazari and al derech zeh ruke is only metame when it's lach, not when it's yovish. That's by a zov. B'negei Nida, so the dam is metame even when it's yavish. Masha'inkin, the reik of a nida is also only metame when it's lach. The reik of a nida is no different than the reik of a zov. Just like the reik of a zov has to be lach, so there is the reik of a nida also has to be lach. That's what we learn here. Perik Sheni. Dam nida v'zov v'yiledis, the dam is metame lach v'yavish. Avol zei v'shel zov and v'ruke v'shich v'zare is any metame el kol zman shu lach. So the ziva has to be lach, and al derech zeh the shechvazera, which we learned before is metame mitzad ziva, and also reik is also only metame lach, and that din that reik is only metame lach by a zov is also by a nida, because the nida and the zov is same din legabi reik. But kama, how much reik, how lach does it have to be? So it has to be im sheir neise bepeshin me'es liyes v'chezel lekmei hoya. In other words, if it's not so dried up that if you're going to let it soak in warm water for 24 hours, it'll become back. It'll go back to its original state and be lach. So then it's hareze metame kilach. It should say hareze metame kilach. Now, what kind of water are you talking about? We're talking about water that you put in warm water. We're talking about poison. But when you put it into warm water, so it's not warm water a whole 24 hours. It's only poison in the beginning. She says, "Im hoyo amayim poison b'tchilason." So again, if you have l'moshel ziva or shechvazera, which is dry, now the question is it metame or not? So if you're going to soak it 24 hours in poishin, and poishin means that you put it in when they were poishin, even though at the end they were cold, and it's not going to go back to its original state of being lach, so then it's called yavish and it's not metame. And if it does go back after 24 hours to its original state and it's lach, so then it's not called yavish, and then it is metame. That's pasha. B'chol advarim elu divrei kabbalah. It's nachamol. So dam is metame lach v'yavish. Mashenkin ziv and shechvazera is only metame when it's lach, and al derech zeh reik is only metame when it's lach. And we're saying that reik is onigeh, even though the Ram doesn't say it clearly, but reik is negeh not only to a zov but also to a nida. Halacha beis. Pishton shetavasi nida. A pishton which a nida spun. So the din is hamisite tor. So even though normally when you spin pishton, so you put some saliva on it. But lepel, we don't assume that the saliva, it's still wet from the saliva. No, the little saliva that you put on it, we could assume it dried out already, and therefore, so we assume that it's tor. However, if we knew for a fact that this pishton was still has a wet, it's still lach, it's still moist. So there's metame they reik pia, because the reik pia of a nida is doch metame. So the question is, normally we assume even though she was the one that was tavase, she's the one that spun it, but nevertheless we assume that it's dry. But if we know that it's moist, so it's metame. Halacha Gimel, Zov shehiniach piv al pi hakes. And v'nimlo shleili shtesi, he was about to drink from a cup, he put his mouth onto the cup, and lepel, he didn't drink from it. It's amazing, it's hakes tor, because again, we assume that no saliva actually came out onto the cup. In other words, when you drink, saliva comes out. Mashenkin, if he didn't drink, so we assume no saliva came out. However, shasim imenu azov kolshu, the zov started drinking, so then it's a masiti tamim, mipnei mashke pi azov, because we assume that some of the saliva of the zov came out onto the cup, even though a very minimal amount. Nevertheless, there's no shear. The saliva of a zov is mitame bikolshu, as a din of an avatum, it's mitame yodam. Halacha daled, zov shenoshach es hapas, es habotzel, he took a bite out of a piece of bread, which is dry, and also an onion, which is dry. So the din is amisit on tor, because we assume that there's no wetness of the mouth that's on this pas or botzel. And if there was a little bit wetness, it dried out. However, noshach es akishus. He bit into a zucchini, which is wet, which has moisture inside, or into a cucumber. So then it's a mesit and tummy, because the wetness of the mouth went into the wetness of the cucumber or the zucchini, and it didn't dry out because the wetness of the zucchini and the cucumber maintained this wetness, and part of it is from the zov. The mashke piazov and misarabem, and that mashke, which from the piazov, which was misarav in him, didn't become bottled. Halacha hey, klipe pulin. This is the peel, the peels of pulin is like certain beans. Uklipe turmusin. Turmusin is translated as vetch, something you give to behemoths usually. Shekotzitzon agoy. A goy took off those klipen, and he's the one that. So and normally when you take off the klipen from these things, you take off the shells from them. You use your mouth, so there's saliva on it, and the goy is the one that did it. So the din is a mesitin tummy. There's someone that moves these klipen on tummy. Shekol agoyim kizov and lechol devreim k'meishi yizbar. So even though menatera there's no musik of tumah by a goy, but midrabanan a goy has a din of a zov. So he has a din of a zov. So the roik of a goy is a din of an avatuma midrabanan. Now, haklipen shebishvakim. If you find klipen in the street and you don't know if it was done by so it's again we assume the klipen are moist. And we don't know if the moisture comes from a goy or from a yid. If it comes from a yid, we assume that it wasn't tummy. Mashengen, if it comes from a goy, so then it has a din of tumah. So we say hilchim b'machar rev. If the rev goyim, so we assume the klipen came from a goy, and memela they're tummy. If rev yidden, so we assume it came from a yid, and the rev in the yid. Dam tummy shenis arev b'mayim. You have blood, which is tummy, and that dam was nisarev in water. Is in botlu marav. If you can't no longer detect the mara of the dam in the water, it became so hakil tar, so it becomes tar. So in other words, once the dam becomes bottled, so it becomes tar. Now this arev b'dam tar ebiyayin, so you can't really see if you can detect it, because if it's in water, you can see if you can see the mara of the dam. But over here, it's all red, so maybe you don't really see if you can detect the original mara. So you say, you have to be mishai. What would be if the dam tar or the yayin wouldn't have been yayin and dam tor, which are red, they would have been mayim. Would they have been noticeable? Would you have seen the dam? Would the dam have been bottled? And v'chein roik tomei shenis ared b'mayim. If you have saliva, spit, which was mixed into water. Now the saliva is like congealed. It's like partially congealed. It doesn't become bottled. Water becomes bottled. Dam becomes bottled. But the roik is one piece. It doesn't dissolve like water. So if this saliva, this spit that came out of your mouth is still like one piece, this is still like somewhat congealed, so then it's a rizatami, because lepela doesn't become bottled. However, if it became dissolved in the water, maybe you mixed it, or just by standing there for a long time, this reik dissolved in the water, so maybe you can't really detect with any reik, so memela is akil tar. Now in this arev bereik acher, you have some saliva, some spit that comes out of a tummy, and it got mixed in with reik acher. So then rein oisekilu mayim. We look at the reik acher as if it would be mayim. Now lechura, the pashtus advarma would also have to be mixed in, because as we said before, if you have a reik that didn't get mixed into the water, so that reik is still tummy. Now, if you have reik that got mixed in with other reik, and they're all like one pieces of reik, so it's not really a bittel of lach belach. It's like almost like a bittel of yavish biyavish. So l'chur, it's not bottle. So l'chur over here also, it's Nisarav B'rei Kacher. I'm not sure really if Nisarav B'rei Kacher. So we say Rei Nesekilu Mayim doesn't mean that only if it dissolved, this rake and the other rake got dissolved, or even they all remained one gush of rake. Is it also dissolved? I'm not sure. V'chein mei raglav shel tomei shenisarve b'mayim. So it's the same thing in bottle mareim. So the rake of a tomei is the tomei. Is also like we learned before is an avatuma. So in bottle mareim it becomes bottle akil tor. V'im lav tomei it becomes tomei. Now nisarvu biyayin b'miraglaim terim is again the same story. In rein esekilu mayim. You can't really tell whether it's bottled the mara or not. So therefore rein esekilu mayim. And memela so again, so we're learning over here that something that's mamish tummy minatera, it's an avatumi minatera, and it became mixed in with water. So we take a look, we see if we could still detect this dam, so then it still has a din of tumah. Mashenkin, if we can no longer detect the dam, so even though we know there's dam there, it becomes bottled to the water, or it becomes bottled to the other dam, or to the yayin, and al deraz miraglayim becomes bottled to the other miraglayim, and mela it becomes tor. Now, what happens in this arvu b'mei raglayim shel goyim? It became this arv b'mei raglayim shel goyim. Now, over here, it means, I mean, it sounds like this arv b'mei raglayim shel goyim, but it means fakir, that water, something that's not tamei, became this arv b'mei raglayim shel tamei. Now, mei raglayim shel tamei is only really tamei midrabana. So before we were saying that something that's tamei minatera, dam, which is tamei minatera, so then dam of a zava or nida. So then, in order for it to become bottle, it has to be that you can't detect it anymore. Over here, the chiddush is that if we're dealing with meiraglayim of goyim, and they're tamei, so even though they have a din of tumim midrabanan, but lepel their tumim midrabanan is not to the extent where, in order for them to be bottle, they have to be not detectable. Over here, they can become bottle if they're bottle berev. That's the chiddush over here. The lashon is sarv b'meiraglayim shel goyim. What it means is really that the meiraglayim shel goyim were nisarvu in something which is going to be mavatal it. So the din is hilchen achar arev. Ketzat keli sho yisrael v'goyim matilim sham meiraglayim. So we say imrev goyim. If most of the people that are matal meiraglayim there are goyim, so then hakil tamis. So that entire keli which is containing this meiraglayim, which most of it we assume is from goyim, so it's tamik because it has a din of meiraglayim of a zov midrabon. Abevim reiv yisrael akil tor. Mechzel is also akil tamik. In order to be tor, it has to be reiv. V'chein this arev. That's what we're talking about. That there are a number of people that are matal meiraglayim into this keli. Now in this arev meiragli goyzeh b'meiragli yisrael zeh, you have one person that was matal meiraglayim, the other person was matal meiraglayim. So over here also, not necessarily matal the same amount. So it's hilchen achar reiv. You have to check to see which one was matal more meiraglayim. And if lepel the Yisrael was matal more meiraglayim than the goy, so the goy's meiraglayim becomes bottled meiraglayim of the Yisrael. Now shel and klei meiraglayim mekol mokim, you could go ahead and borrow a keli which contains meiraglayim or has meiraglayim. Veicheshin shemesh shel nida, say maybe it's meiraglayim of a nida, and that would be mamash and avatumah because shli nechshudu b'nei Yisrael lechanis is meiraglayim kshein nidas. Bnei Yisrael wouldn't put their meiraglayim into a keli because they know that it's tumah, it's an avatuma. So therefore, they would make sure that the meiraglayim would go to a place where it's not, it doesn't gather into a keli. It doesn't gather into a keli. Halacha ches. Cheres shehoya hazov and matilim bei meiraglayim. There was a keli that a zov or a zova was being matal their meiraglayim into this keli. And lepel, after they emptied the keli, and v'chipsu pam rishena, and they washed out the keli once, and then ushniya, and then a second time. So the water which you washed out, this keli, the first time and the second time, is harei amashkin shekipsu bem tmeim. We say that enough meiraglayim like are still stuck to the keli, so the water which you used in order to mechabes this keli are still tummy. However, upam shlishis, once you washed it out twice, and now you're washing it out a third time, so then tahirim, then the keli becomes the water becomes tor. Ben shekipsu b'mayim, ben shekipsu meiraglayim. Whether they washed out this keli with water, or they washed it out with meiraglayim, which are tahirim. So either way, so the first and second time is always tamei, and the third time is tor. Sharei l'nisher ba machluches shemeiraglayim. So there was no lachluches of meiraglayim left in this keli. So therefore, the water that's now in this keli is tor. Halacha tes. Zova shenekru mei meiragla b'seif shivas yemei asfira. And v'yorda v'tovla v'hitila mayim achar tefillah. No, she felt that she has to be matal meiraglayim. So she feels it was like nekra meiragla. She feels she has to be matal meiraglayim. And lepel, she wasn't matal meiraglayim until after she was stable. So this feeling that she had was before she was stable. And lepel, she was stable, and then she was matal meiraglayim. So here's a suffix. Im achar akira hilchim. Since she would felt that she has to be matal meiraglayim, so it's as if the meiraglayim were already nekar from her guf. And this meiraglayim of a zova, and therefore, and v'zova hoisa, so therefore it's tummy this meiraglayim, or no, or achar yitzir, we go bust to the yitzir, sof kol sof, lepel the atolis of the meiraglayim was after she was already teira, achar yitzir, she teira, which she's teira. So the shaila was, if she was matal meiraglayim, she was nekra before she went to the mikveh, and lepel, she was matal the meiraglayim after she was tavla. Now the shaila is, does that din also apply to a zov? The Rambam says the benegei zova. So there's a tesis in Nida, the Rambam brings a tesis in Nida, where over there he says that this din is only by a zov and not by a zov. By a zov, there's no mitzias of nekru meiragla. He feels that he has to be matal meiraglayim, but that's not called nekru. Mitzias agashmi is the kechilik, that by a zov there's some musik called nekru meiragla, even though it didn't come out yet from the guf. Mashenkin by a zov, there's no musik of nekru. When it comes out of the guf, that's when it's nekru. Mashenki brings the Meiri argues, the Meiri says that this same din would be side by Azov and side by Azov. This din applies to Azov as well. V'chein goya, so this din was benegei Azov. Now v'chein goya, shenekru mei meragla, she was felt that she has to be matal meraglayim, and v'nizgaira, then she was tovel, and v'tovla, v'yitila mayim achar shetovla, is also a reza suffix, is the same suffix, machar akira elchin. And Memela, at that point in time, she was a goya, Memela varein k'mei ragla hagoyim atmeim, or yachar yitzia, Memela varein k'mei miragla yisrael laterim. So we have a suffix whether or not this meraglayim is tomei, the tumah of a zover, or tumah of a goya. Halacha yud. Ho'avodim mitamen beziva ubenido beleida ki yisrael. Aval hagoyim ein mitamen lei beziva v'lei benidus v'lei beleidas dintera. Dintera, there's no musig of tumah by a goy. There's a tumah by a yid. Now the tumah is only by a yid, but it includes also avodim. Avodim is a evet knaini. So an evet knaini or shivcha knainis, which is a nida or a ziva or an leida, all these dinim apply to an evet knaini as well. Masha'enkin to a goy, minatera, there's no musig, not of ziva, not of nida, not of leidus. Shenamer dabrol b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim ish ki yezov. So we learn now b'nei Yisrael mitamen b'ziva v'lei agoyim. However, v'chachamim gozru al kol agoyim, sheyitmu kizovim l'chol divrei, schorim unekevis. Chacham made a takona that all goyim should have a din of a zov. So a goy should have a din of a zov, and should have a din of a zov. V'hu, sheyiyah zocher ben teshe shana v'yemechad olamayla. That's only talking about a goy. The benegei a yid, a zov of a yid could be even a ben yemechad, like the Ram said earlier. Masha'inkin benegei a goy that he has a din of a zov. He has a din of a zov. Not do we know that he had ziva. Whereas a goy has a din of a zov only when this goy is ben teshe shana v'yemechad olamayla. Vanekeva bas shalish shana v'yemechad olamayla. Avalaktana lematim mizman zev. She's not yet 3 years old, or he's not yet 9 years old. Is legozra alim tuma. Why? Because sheikcha gzeira. The reason for the gzeira that a goy should have a din of a zov and a goy should have a din of a zova is kadei sheyehei tinik yisrael rogel etzel agoy b'mishkav zocher. So in order that a yid should always stay away from the goy. A yid should know that being next to the goy is matame beziva, and memela, so he'll be nizah not to be next to the goy like this. He won't be able. He'll have a din of tumah and all kinds of dinim. So mela, that'll keep him away from the goy. Now, what kind of goy are we worried about keeping away from? A goy that's ben teshe shana v'yemechad, which biyasi bia. Memela, he could be. It could be a musig of mishkav zocher. Masha'inkin a goy, which is not yet ben teshe shana v'yemechad, so there's not really such a concern of a yid having to do with him. That's what he's saying. Sheika gzeru k'dei shleitinik Yisrael rogel etzel agoy b'mishkav zocher. Aber pachas mizanze, if this guy is not yet 9 years old, ain't biyasin bia. So memela, that's why they didn't make the gzeira if he's pachas mizanze. He's pachas mizanze. And al daraz benegei isha. Isha also, so we don't want that a isha should be next to a goyim. So memela, so therefore the guys that should have a din of a tumah, but that's only when the isha becomes ruya l'bia. Which becomes ruya l'bia. Be'esha gozru, when they made the takona that a goy should have a din of a zov, and the meraglaim of a goy has a din of a zov, and the reik of a goy has a din of a zov. Be'eshe gozra aleim legozra al shichva zera shalem. The shichva zera of a goy doesn't have a din of tumah. That din of tumah, we say that the ziva of a goy has a din of not the ziva. The ziva is also a chidush. And al derech zeh, the reik and the meraglaim, that doesn't apply to shichva zera. El shichva zera shel goy toira kidin toira. The shichva zera of a goy still remains Torah. Why didn't they institute the tumah also on shichva zera? Kedei lehidia, in order to make a point, shetumasa midivri sefer. Sharekel yedin sheilo yizovim din Torah. Everyone knows that Lu Yitzir, a person that's a zov min ha-Torah, so shichva zera is also metami. Is metami. The shichva zera of every yid is metami without being a zov. The chiddush of a zov is that he's metami also betumas masa. The sharekel yedin sheilo yizovim din Torah is shichva zera avatuma ki shichva zera hazov. So, in other words, the point is that Chacham wanted people to realize that the fact that a goy is tummy is only midrabon. Now, if the din is going to be that he's going to be tummy, everything that a regular zov is tummy, so there won't be any point of realizing that he's tummy only midrabon. Mashenkin, now that we see that a shichva zera is not tummy, so the question is, why is shichva zera not tummy? The shichva zera of a zov is always tummy. The answer is because he's tummy midrabon. What do you gain by knowing that he's only tummy midrabon? Once you realize that his tum is only midrabanon, is liyaveil lister v'aleh truma v'kachim. So they won't burn truma v'kachim because you don't burn truma v'kachim on tum midrabanon. Nimtza slomat shezei v'shel goy or v'dam nida idam ziva v'leida shel goya and v'hagoy atzmon afal pisheim nikim midam hazev. In other words, we're talking about a goy which didn't have any dam or any ziva. And also v'reika goyim, umei miragleim, umishkavan umirkavan, ubeil nida. This is the whole rishim again. There's the zevi shel goy, the dam nida of a goy, the dam ziva, the dam leida shel goya, and then there's the goy and goya atzman. Even though they didn't have avol b'shem nikim, not you take out the word minater, avol b'shem nikim, midam v'zev, they didn't have it, and also v'reika goyim, and also umei miragleim, umishkavan umirkavan, ubeil nida. Oboil goy, I'm sorry. Kol echad mi'elu av tumim midivri sefer. They have a din of an av tumim midrabon lefichach. Since it's only av tumim midrabon and chayoven aleim al bias mikdash v'kadoshav, someone that came into contact who was nasi them. Ve'ein seir from aleim is hatruma and v'kulan mitamin odem v'kele b'maga u'mitamin odem b'masa zov l'chol dover. And they have the din midrabon of this dinim of ziva, just like this of us, no, the dam niden, the dam ziva, all this that would be metame midatera mit mago b'masa, so they are metame midrabanan b'mago b'masa. Kizov l'chol dover ella shahatum midivreim k'mei shebiyanu. And v'dam hanochris kiruka k'mei miragla, and it's only metame lach ve'eni metame yovish. So that's another kula b'negei dam hagoyes. So even though normally we say dam hanida is metame lach v'yovish, but on the other hand, the Ruko Meimeragla, we said before, even though the Ram didn't say it clearly, was that the Ruko Meimeragla Vanida is also only Metame Lach, not Yovish, just like by Azov. But Lepeil, by Adam HaNochris, is only Metame if it's Lach and not Yovish. That din that Adam is Metame Lach v'Yovish doesn't apply to a Goya.